I'm welcoming you to Book Carnival. Delighted to have you all here. We're going to have the author front and center in just a moment. There we go. There it is. And this is Jeffrey B. Burton visiting Book Carnival today with his book, The Keepers. We're very excited about that. And Jeff and I were just talking that his next hardcover was out yesterday, came out yesterday. So we have 3 books in this wonderful series now.
Oh, thanks, Anne. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, we're thrilled. We have, we all love dogs. I think I speak for 95% of the population at least. And we love it when they're involved in something like this, which is different. I've never seen a book that covers dogs that do what yours do. But also because there's so much heart and warmth and humor in your books.
Oh, thanks.
Which really helps offset, because you do have some grim things that you have to deal with. How did you come about wanting to write a book and then a series on a topic like this?
Well, originally it was a standalone book, and my agent in St. Martin's Press wanted me to kind of break it in half. And so originally it was just the Finders, and it had a lot of stuff going on in it. And they had me break it in half, so it'd be the Finders, and then the second book, The Keepers.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of coming up with the idea, it's kind of a crazy story. Is I was selected for jury duty several years ago, and I don't get to. I'm in Minnesota. I don't get to drive into Minneapolis. I've got to drive to this small town about 40 minutes away for the county I'm in, and no matter how hard I tried to get out of jury duty, my wife's an attorney, my dad's an attorney. I used to work at a place that was full of attorneys, so I just kept saying attorney over and over again. And I was shocked that they picked me. I was gathering my stuff and my lunch and ready to leave, and Jeff Burton, and it wound up being the probably the world's most complex real estate case. And I was driving in one morning listening to the radio as I drive to this small town that I don't really go to very much, and they had a news report that some poor gentleman had wandered away from I don't know if assisted living or a nursing home, and that the sheriff department was going to call in the cadaver dogs.
Oh.
And so as I'm kind of going through security into the courthouse, I'm thinking, wow, we've heard a lot about, you've got bomb sniffing dogs, you've got illicit narcotics, dogs that are sniffing out drugs. And I thought, have they done a lot with, human remains detection dogs? And when you're on a jury, they give you a yellow pad, where you can just kind of follow it. And a lot of times you just wind up sitting around waiting and waiting. So on the very back page, I was kind of writing a lot of different ideas and who the characters would be, what kind of dogs, and what would, there's kind of a mystery every time you find a body, but what would be some really interesting mysteries. And so I had kind of the last page of the notebook filled out. And at the end of the trial, the judge came in and he thanked us. And then he said, well, the bailiff's going to come in and take your notebooks. And I'm like, oh. And so suddenly I'm like in grade school again, and I'm trying to secretly rip out the last page and shove it in my pocket with nobody looking. And so that's how the idea kind of occurred to me. And then I've always been a dog lover. My wife and I, we tend to get dogs that aren't wanted, and so I've kind of some of the different dogs, I've kind of based certain characteristics on some of the dogs I've had. In fact, each of the books is dedicated to one of the dogs I've had the honor of sharing my life with, starting with my little, in the Finders, starting with the little dachshund I had when I was a wee lad.
Did you have to do a lot of studying to know how a cadaver dog comes about, the training and the working with them?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm fortunately I'm a bit of a research geek, and I in the books, in the finders, and then I think I also brought it up again in the keepers, is it's really fascinating how, Mace, I mean, he'll actually have a nurse at a local clinic take a little blood out, and then he'll find the dog's favorite plaything or a tennis ball and put a little blood inside or on it. And then there'll be elaborate games of hide and seek in different terrains and at night and in the rain. And he also has some nieces and nephews. So when their baby teeth fall out, he's able to take like the teeth and do the same thing. And he'd recently gone through a divorce, which he didn't want, but his ex-wife had her hair done at a salon. So he's able to go there and get some hair and some stuff like that. And there's all sorts of scent tubes that they sell. And then it's an very intricate game of hide and seek, and till they're able to, seek out and hunt out the bodies. And it's just, the research I did is just so insane that the dog's sense of smell is almost supernatural. I mean, the real sniffer dogs that have the bigger snouts, you've got bloodhounds or basset hounds and German shepherds and my beagle, and even pit bulls and Doberman pinchers and retrievers. They have 300 million scent receptors in their nasal cavities, and humans, us mere humans, we just have 5 million. And I went to my wife and I went to Top Gun Maverick the other day, and I haven't been in a movie theater in a long time, and I could just go popcorn, and I was trying to make a list of what, I can smell. My neighbor's really good at barbecuing, so I can kind of smell his. When we burn leaves, I can smell that. Maybe the ozone around rain I can smell, or a lot of times I'll try to pretend I'm going to eat good, and I'll put vegetables in the crisper, and then 6 months later I'll open the crisper. And so I think there's probably, I think I plateaued out when I got towards about 15 or 16 cents that I could truly identify. I think we've evolved so much for our eyesight is just, dominant.
Of course.
But dogs are, they're just crazy. They're just, I don't have, one of the things to be a dog handler is you have to have a lot of patience, and I don't have that patience. My wife would say I'm one of the least patient, but but my beagle also has the longer snout, and I'll take him for walks, and he zigzags back and forth because he's trying to put together what he smells. And we have a lot of little woodland trails, and I'll see a rabbit or a squirrel run across the trail ahead of us, and then I'm like, oh no, because we'll go 50 yards, and then he'll be alerted to the scent, and then he'll follow it one way, and then he'll follow it back from where it came and everything. And meanwhile, I'm looking at my watch and going, hey, come on, get it out of you, So I just had some fun, and the stories take place in Chicago, which I think that's where you're from, Anne.
Yes, it is. I was thrilled when I saw that.
Yeah, I had some fun, and like I said, the first originally it was one book, and then it was broken in half. And the keepers is kind of gets into kind of the history of Chicago, and some of the they've got such a checkered history going back to Al Capone, and he owned some politicians, and just a long history of police corruption.
Yes,
and so
we're infamous.
You are infamous. You are. Yeah. And my wife and I always used to, get a cheap airfare and jump over to Chicago. My sister lived there for a while, and so it kind of became kind of a place that I kind of got to know. Never go to the museums here, but I go to the museums in Chicago.
Because they're so special.
They are special.
They are. it gave you a great background. What I found interesting in your first book, you didn't, not you, but the character in the book was amazed at how swiftly this dog developed.
Oh yeah.
And the one part that really got to me was when the handler didn't believe the dog, that there was remains there. And I don't want to give too much away if someone hasn't read the first book. But the dog was so determined and so persistent that I can't remember now if the dog went back on its own or if they went back again a second time and actually proved that the dog was right, even though it was so new in training.
Right. In the Finders, you kind of get Elvira's backstory, and Mace has the reason that it's kind of called the Finders is that's what he's dubbed his pack of human remains detection dogs.
Uh-huh.
And Vira is having kind of a maiden hunt that kind of goes a bit awry, but she's got an interesting backstory. She's got a little near-death experience. I won't ruin any spoilers or anything, but Mace wonders if that's helped kind of spark how she's just his prized pupil, or if she's just such a natural, but she's just such a wonderfully brilliant dog. And his other the other dogs in his pack of Finders, there's Sue, who's a male German Shepherd, who's kind of the alpha male, kind of patriarchal, kind of cranky, and he thinks he runs the house, and he just might. And then there's Maggie May and Delta Dawn. They're a couple of short-haired farm collies that are sister collies, and they're wonderfully lovable, except when they're trying to drive Mace insane. They kind of do a little odd things that kind of make him think that they're gaslighting him. They'll look at each other, then they'll look at him, they'll look at the car, and before you know it, he's checking for his key and his phone, and wondering what they know that he doesn't. And in The Keepers, we introduce you to Billy Joe from the Bobby Lee Gentry song. He likes naming them after some country rock or country folk, and that's the
I love the names.
Oh yeah, and Billy just loves life, and I think I based him on Milo that's sitting behind me. He loves finding the gunkiest pile of goo, and then he just carpe diem, and he just rolls in it.
Oh dear.
And I have to be very careful when I'm walking this guy, because he'll come and smell something, and I know his kind of body language. And when he starts doing that thing where he kind of hovers downward, I know he's going to go full throttle, and then I'm trying to usher him away. But there's nothing more fun when you just want to enjoy a walk, and then the next thing you know, oh no, now I've got a 40-minute bath ahead of us.
Exactly. Yeah, more than you expected.
More than you expect, yeah.
But you also, it's such a serious subject and such an important one, because, oops, I'm neglecting people in the waiting room. Okay, there we go. It's such an important job to have in finding, being able to find someone. And it doesn't always have to be a cadaver. Is that not correct?
Right. I'm absolutely blown away by what dogs can do. I was reading an article a couple of years ago, and I'm not sure how far they've pursued it, but they were trying to train dogs to sniff out COVID, and dogs can sniff out certain kinds of cancer. And, to me, this is just, it boggles the mind. And then you have the, sniffing out, I guess, meth or heroin or drugs. And then, of course, the military dogs that are, sniffing out IEDs and explosives.
Yes.
It's really amazing. Really amazing how they can train them for all these different things that they can do.
Well, and the love and the bondage that comes between handler and dog. And I especially thinking of the military right now, because I've seen so many cases where when the serviceman comes back home and the dog doesn't, at the same time at least, there's really a bond there that's painful because they've been separated, and such joyous reunions at times.
Right. Yeah. It's I think the saddest thing, I have a friend that owns a lot of horses, and she was telling me that they live 20 to 25 to maybe 30 years. And I'm like, dogs are, maybe 10 to 15 or 16.
Right.
And so you have this just such a truncated, abbreviated life from the crazy puppy to everything. And it can often just be real kind of, we had a Australian Shepherd that lived to almost 16.
Mm-hmm.
And she did the last 2 years completely blind.
Oh.
But she knew where everything was, and the floor was always clean. I could drop a Cheerio, and she'd find it right away. And I loved her enthusiasm. I mean, if I spilled some orange juice, she'd work at it for hours, And she going blind was crazy. I mean, I brought her to the vet, and I'm like, well, do you have drops for this? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, is there anything we can do? And they're like, no. But I was amazed that she had the house and the backyard mapped out. And we got another dog at the time, and my wife had put in, we've got kind of an upper yard and a lower yard. And she put a dog door on the sliding glass of the upper yard. And she was telling me that Amber, the Australian Shepherd that was blind, had figured it out. And I'm like, there's no way. She did not have that before she went blind. And then literally a second later, she comes in through the door, and I'm like, I can't believe it, but there you have it.
Isn't that amazing? That's wonderful. It's a great story.
Yeah.
To be able to adjust like that and still continue to function. It's very heartwarming. Your books deal with very serious subjects, and of course the work that the dogs do is very serious, but you bring a lot of humor into these books, which is perfect. It's enough without being without being overboard.
Yeah.
Where did that come from, and was that a conscious effort?
Yeah, I think Mace is kind of, he's a good guy. He may or may not have a screw loose, but he's got an interesting way of kind of looking at life, and a little bit irreverent. And he is that on my end?
I don't know. Everything looks good here.
Everything is good.
Yeah.
And so he like when I did the research on how training cadaver dogs, I tried to kind of talk about how it was from Mace's point of view, so I'd make it interesting and not have the readers just come to, here's a 10-page essay. And he kind of talks about how if he were a serial killer, here's how Vira would figure him out. And so I kind of try to term it in some interesting ways. And he's kind of, in the beginning of the Finders, he's in kind of a low spot. He had a Springer Spaniel that died of kidney failure, and then which is how he wound up finding Vira at the Chicago Animal Care and Control.
Right.
And I don't know, the keepers, I guess I get some ideas that I just love. And in the keepers, they get into a lot of trouble, and they're on the loose. And I don't think it's too big a spoiler, but they're kind of trying to escape. Well, in kind of one of the a dog mobile, one of the Chicago's dog mobiles, they're trying to make a run for it. And he's talking with his friend Kippy, and she's like, well, I wish it were an ice cream truck, then we could have some butter pecan, and so I try to make it kind of a fun and interesting, but like you said, it is some serious matter, and but some dark humor to maybe break up some of the
Uh,
intensity.
Yeah, I think you have a great balance there because people really enjoy it. Going back to, let's see where the original questions were again. One person is asking, do you read other books with dogs as main characters? And it's a dual question, really. What authors do you read?
Oh, I read Paula Mounier. I interviewed her for Mystery Tribune, so I read some of hers.
Uh-huh.
And then Spencer Quinn, who is absolutely fascinating because he writes, the narrator of his books is the dog.
Exactly. Yes,
And,
he's a favorite of ours too.
oh, it's I've read his, and it's just so brilliant because the dog is on the verge of figuring something very pivotal out, and then a squirrel runs by. Oh, there goes a squirrel, and it's all kind of lost. So I love Spencer, and he did a great blurb for me on the Finders. And then David Rosenfeld is his are fun, and his are have a lot of humor in them too. His
Yes.
guy is kind of more of an attorney, and the dogs may not factor in as big as like in the Finders series, but so I read them quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. No, the ones you've mentioned are favorites of us at the store. And then the first question Barbara put in, she said, well, I was getting more comfortable. We know you wrote a book with dogs, but how did you pick dogs that find dead people?
Oh, I think that was probably got the idea when I was going to jury duty and had heard on the radio that they're calling out cadaver dogs, and then just kind of did a little bit of research. And I originally I was writing, a short story, and then I've got to like 10 pages, and I go, this has got to be a novella. And then I got to like 40,000 words, and I'm like, this is going to be a full length novel.
And then it wound up being 2.
Yeah, and three. Oh yeah, that I had to break that in 2, and I was kind of I'm kind of like, okay, but that means I have to write a chunk for this one, and now you're making me write a chunk for this one. Okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering, oh my gosh, this is my first novel. What are they doing to me?
But you're St. Martin's Press, so I'll say yes.
Yes, you would be foolish to do otherwise, right?
Right. And let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody did a book review. Dogs, Barbara. Dogs. People here looks my review on Looks at Books. Oh, Looks at Books. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
In WordPress. Do you
And
read other books with dogs? Book 3, The Lost is now out. Is
now out.
It's now out. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it came out yesterday.
Yeah, we were just talking about that when we first got together. It doesn't look like we have anyone else joining in on the chat just yet, but hopefully they will.
Well, I've kind of left Mace and Kippy and Vira in kind of a good place, but the thing for what's next for us readers, I've kind of taken a little pause because I've got an idea drawer where I'll toss ideas in the drawer and let them ferment for a while. And during COVID, wound up streaming a lot of documentaries, and docudramas.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got this idea where there's a serial killer who's been dormant for years, who happens to, the police think that he's died or been arrested for something else, but he happens to reawaken after streaming a Netflix docudrama that depicts his string of homicides, and he's not really happy with how the documentary or his portrayal went. And in that one, it does have dogs to a little lesser degree. It's got a brother and a sister are the protagonists, and it's called the Dead Years. And my agent is looking at it now and kind of fine tuning it, and she always offers some great feedback, and so I think Mace and Vira will be coming back, but there'll be a short interlude.
All right.
Different.
Well, I always think that's healthy for an author to diverse a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. You know, where can readers? Oh, where can readers find you on social media? News. You know, I'm on Goodreads, and I've got a couple of blogs, and my website is jeffreybburton.com, and I've written a lot of really fun and interesting articles about dogs, and just some fun, interesting articles for Crime Reads and Criminal Element and some other places, in case you'd like to read some of those. Some of those are a little humorous too. I am on Twitter. I'm Jeffrey B. Burton 1. Evidently, there's another Jeffrey B. Burton.
There is. Yes.
I think he's probably gets some weird stuff that he doesn't understand, but I think he's checked out. I went to his site and saw that he hadn't done anything in 10 years. So Goodreads, jeffreybburton.com, Facebook, just Jeffrey B. Burton. Yeah, so hunt me down. And I think on my website, I have at the bottom, I think I have links to the Twitter and links to the Facebook and some stuff like that. I haven't really done Instagram.
Oh, Instagram is good. But that's great. You're getting out there, and that's important.
Right.
Yeah, we do the same thing, all the different areas and post. Your most recent book, though, on the dogs, the series that we're talking about, came out yesterday, you said.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you want to show the cover if you've got it there?
Show the cover, The Lost.
I'll hold it up just a little bit.
Oh, is that good?
Yeah, there.
Oh.
That's even better. All right. Perfect. A great cover.
Yeah, I've been real happy with the graphic designers that have worked on these books. They've caught the spirit and kind of made them just a little bit dark, and they've done a real good job.
No, it's been wonderful. Did you want to mention anything about the new one that just came out?
Yeah, I think the elevator pitch for the Finders is kind of cadaver dogs versus serial killers. The Keepers is more cadaver dogs versus high-level corruption. And in this, they're on the trail of a missing 5-year-old girl who may or may not have been kidnapped. And just nothing is what it appears to be. And they're in for a wild ride.
Oh, sounds great. So this book is just out, so it'll be another year before we see the standalone that you were talking about.
Right.
Busy person.
Yeah. I tend to write in binges where, I'll just wind up with some coffee and beef jerky, and I'll wind up, and I like when the binge comes, because 3 or 4 days of just being kind of crazy, and all of a sudden it's 12,000 words, and it's pretty good stuff. And so I love when the binges come. I tell everyone I'm going to be a little antisocial for a few days, but it's kind of crazy, Anne, is a lot of folks come to me and they're like, well, Jeff, I can drop my dog off with you and come back in a month, and you'll be able to find dead bodies and drugs, and
okay.
I'm like, well, no, you'll come back in a month and your dog will be 5 pounds heavier, and he'll be a Gopher football fan,
and he won't be ready to go home,
and he won't want to go home.
Exactly. Going back to your jury duty and that back page of that tablet, had you considered writing books before you did that?
I think
seriously,
I'd done 3 that were kind of FBI thrillers, and those were kind of interesting. I think I was telling you the first one was with McAdam Cage, and then that wound up kind of with their bankruptcy. It was kind of crazy, and it wound up being kind of a trilogy with some different publishers. I think I'm the only guy that's had, a trilogy with 3 different publishers, and they're all really good books. Just kind of, I think it's a tale a lot of authors have stuff like that. And then I've written, I started really 20 some years ago writing short stories, and
Okay.
a lot of them were, like some mysteries and some horror and some sci-fi, did everything. And so when I started writing books, I'd often do the O. Henry thing where you end a chapter or you end a story with something that kind of turns everything upside down.
Hmm.
And so I know my first novel, The Chessman, it's kind of like, well, that's how it's done. So it's like almost at the end of every chapter, I had to, do a good cliffhanger to draw them along.
Right. It keeps people turning those pages.
Yeah, and I was really, ironically, I had a short story about a dog in an anthology that the anthology won the Shirley Jackson Award a couple years ago, and had been up for a Stoker Award. But it's part of a team. There are like 15 of us, and I'm like, well, when are you going to send the little Shirley Jackson Award to my house so I can hold it for a while, and and then I'll take my tile saw to it and cut it into 15 pieces, and we'll,
That's why you haven't seen it yet.
that's why I've not seen it. No. And that was kind of that was just kind of ironic because that story, I haven't written a lot of stories, short stories about dogs, but that happened to just, be about I think the tag was, it was called Liza, the story of a little lost dog or a lost man. Take your pick.
Okay.
Um,
Intriguing.
Intriguing, a little
It
intriguing.
would be.
Yeah.
So dogs have figured pretty high in your writing menu as you went through all of this. That's great. And like I said in the beginning, I just love that it's in Chicago and you're hitting all the right spots to mention and bring up, which is really neat.
I have a bit of a crazy story. Is a person had emailed me through my website, and he said, hey, you've mentioned a bar in the Finders. I'm a regular. I'm like Norm at Cheers for this bar. And how did you come up with, did you know about the bar? How did you, and so I on my website, they're put in their email address. So I wrote them back and just telling them, well, the bar was in an area, I've heard of it. I surfed the site and everything. And I was telling them the story, and I sent it, and it got bounced back because he had entered the wrong email. And then I tried correcting his email, and then I sent that, and it bounced back. And I'm like, this guy's going to think like I'm a jerk, And so a couple months go by, and all of a sudden the owner of the bar emails me and says, hey, we've got your book. We've got it on the wall. We've got that page, and it's hard to run a tavern in Chicago, and this is so great. So I wrote back to her, and I said, was your customer that showed this to you, was his name Chris? And she's like, yeah. And I go, please tell Chris that I didn't blow him off. He sent me the wrong, and so that wound up being fun. But I am a research geek, and I will do so much for something that I'll spend 6 hours, and then it'll wind up being 2 sentences.
Mm-hmm. But it shows in your work. That's the important thing, the long term. And you don't overdo it. You may have 6 hours of research, but you don't overdo it in the book. I mean, it's just perfect.
Oh,
and the next time you're in Chicago, you're going to have to go to that bar.
That's what they've told me, that there will be free drinks.
Sign the book first before you have too many of the drinks.
Yeah.
No, Chicago is really great for their neighborhood bars, and they different than I've ever seen out here. It's a neighborhood thing. That's where people go to gather.
Right.
families would do it. It didn't have any stigma to someone wanting to drink too much. It was just that's what you did on a given evening or a Sunday afternoon type of thing.
Well, and the you go and see a ball game, and unlike certain areas, you leave and you've got 40 different places you can choose to go to.
Exactly.
That's always fun.
So it depends on who you're talking about, the Cubs or the White Sox.
That's right. That's right. The Cubs is the one where you can see the apartment across the way and people are sitting on.
Yes, on the roof.
Right.
Yeah. That was the days, especially when the announcers, before they were televised so much, the announcers, they'd be listening to it on the radio and sitting up there watching it.
Oh, funny.
Famous for that.
Let's see. When you start, do you know the end, or does it evolve as you write? Okay, yeah, Barbara, I start with a really loose outline, and then I wind up modifying the outline when different things occur to me. And so I've kind of done that, but The Lost wound up being the first one where I think they call it seat of the pantser, by the seat of my pants. And it's the first one where I just wanted to see what would happen if I did not follow any outline. And I kind of went along kind of knowing a chapter or two ahead of me. I know what the next two chapters are. Beyond that, I don't know. And, maybe it saved a little time. Maybe I'll have to change from an outliner to a seat of the pantser.
And you found that it worked? You didn't have to go back and change major parts of it?
I wind up, when I'm done, I wind up just going over it and over it and over it and over it. I try to make it just really slick by the time I send it to the editors, and then they come back and we go back and forth several times, and God bless them. My mom's an English teacher, and I think some of that rubbed off on me, but you wind up, your eyes kind of glaze over that you can't see any of the errors or typos that you've made. And
no, you can look at it so carefully. They'll laugh, some of them that know me here at this end, because no matter how many people I have read the newsletter before it goes out, there's always one mistake in there somewhere.
I'm just the thing that I can't stand. I mean, at least with Word, you've got spell check, but if I'm texting someone, it's got that auto correct, and so
yes.
I'll have a word and I'll type it, and then I'll type the rest of the text, but the text thing fixed the word and I didn't even notice it. So I send out something that suddenly is meaningless.
That is frustrating. I know they mean well, but I do wish they'd leave our things alone, right?
Yeah. Don't change the meaning.
No. So we're talking about this book. You already have your next book out. You've got a standalone plan. You're going to be busy over the next several months.
Yeah. Things are kind of crazy, but it's good.
Oh, of course. Where else do you feel this will go for you? Obviously, as much as we hope, you're going to stick with the dogs and Mace and come back with another book. Do you have an arc in mind? Anything in particular?
Yeah, I kind of hint at the relationship between Mace and Kippy and the Lost is kind of progressing. Mm-hmm. And of course he's got to at some point start training in the goofy little dog Billy Joe, and we'll see how he ranks as a human remains detection dog. I've got some plot ideas that are sitting in my idea drawer, just kind of waiting for me. So yeah, busy.
That's good for us to know, because really enjoying the series and looking forward to whatever else you might do. I don't think I have anyone else. Barbara has kept us busy with questions, but I don't think anyone else has joined in.
Do you have plans to age the characters and dogs over time? Yeah, I mean, in the latest one, Mace is worrying about how he's spitting distance from 30. So they're still relatively young. I always, I'll read Michael Connelly books or Barry
Oh,
Eisler's, and
yes.
it's like, oh my goodness, he's got to be, Bosch has got to be 80 or 85,
Yeah, he
um,
slowed it down a little bit, but not enough.
not enough. Just don't remind people that, he was a Vietnam vet or something, but
Yeah. Well, I thought they handled it well because he does complain about aches and pains. And I
yeah,
think bringing Jane Ballard in was really
right.
brilliant.
Oh, I love those books. I love Michael Connelly.
Oh, yeah. What's not to love, right?
I if anyone has ever, I I always have like some of the favorite authors, and he's one of them where I kind of say, "You've ruined my vacation. I was supposed to be at the cabin playing with the family. Instead, I'm antisocial, sitting in the cabin, just coming out when anyone barbecues food for me, and then back in the cabin just to finish the book." And
Yep. I know the feeling. I know you're in Minneapolis and people aren't traveling a lot yet, but if you find yourself in California or going to be, you have to come to Book Carnival and we'll have a party anyway, whether
I
you're
sure
in between books or not.
I sure will, Anne.
Because it would be wonderful we'd have a larger group, of course, than what we're doing right now. And it would be lovely to talk about all of them, whatever's out by that time.
Oh, it'd be great. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Like I had told Anne, I was originally born in Long Beach, California, and was there for 2 or 3 years, none of which I remember, but
well, I loved your comment about finding a picture with you as a little one sitting on a lawn with your mother, and on the back said January. So you knew it wasn't Minneapolis.
That was the last time I sat on a green lawn in January.
Exactly. No, but this has been great. Do you have anything else you'd like to tell us? We've been asking questions.
No, thank you so much for having me, and thank you everybody for showing up, and hopefully you enjoy the books.
Well, and they will, and we have them in stock, as well as this. As I told you, this recording goes on to Book Carnival's page or link where everybody can watch the recording, which helps, because some people are truly at work.
Right.
You never know. More people have gone back to work, but everybody appreciates that. I appreciate your time today with us.
Oh, you bet.
And we'll do this again.
Great. Well, thank you, Anne, and thank you everybody for coming.
Oh, our pleasure. And I'm going to put it, you enjoy yourself, and we'll talk to you again soon.
We'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.